Hello and welcome to another video from the Tradelands Nation. This is our monthly world report for February 2025. Let's start as we always do with a look at the stock market. As of January 31st, the M&G 15 index, which measures the performance of mining in Tradelands, closed at 24,326, down 3.6% or 876 points. The main reason for this slow and steady fall throughout the month was due to the prices for ice falling as well. Inversely, the JSI index, which measures timber felling, closed at 20,343, up 2.5% or 527 points. This is actually where we thought the index would end up last month, so it does show that the profession is still very healthy. The success of the Kingfisher blueprint, coupled with the removal of the exclusive woods from the premium merchant at the beginning of the month, helped it reach the monthly closing point. And finally, the earnings index closed at 44,197, up 0.75%. The dips and spikes coincide with crates going off sale, causing the market for crate items to calm down. The late month turmoil was a result of premium tokens becoming more volatile on the market, as well as another item, fish oil, which saw a late month price correction attempt, but it was premium tokens and their demand that was still the main item impacting volatility in the month, and it is even doing so now into the beginning weeks of February. And together, these indexes show that the overall market in Tradelands is healthy. In fact, when we look at the overall market strength, we recorded 1.36 billion doubloons in new market activity. However, when you compare this to January 2024, we see that the overall market strength this year is 14.5% lower than it was last year, an indication that players may likely have an increased chance to redirect the market in 2025 if that's something that you're interested in doing. And if you are, the time to start doing that is now. This year promises to be a year of upgrades to the game, and we did see one surprise change in January, and that was the announcement that throughout the rest of the year, new ship variants would be released every month. These variants are available for a limited time only, effectively going off sale at the end of every month, which means that you will have to decide fairly quickly if you want to buy one. And it's mid-February when we recorded this, so there have been 2 variants released so far. So for our next segment, let's take a look at what those variants look like and hopefully make some assumptions about what we can expect going forward, as well as provide some guidance on how you can obtain them and what method of obtaining them is right for you. The first is the Janus, which was released last month. This is a variant of the Otter and basically increases your crosswind speed, changes the visual look of the sails and masts of your ship, while keeping the rest of the ship's characteristics unchanged. There were 2 variants available, the Interceptor and the Brawler variant, and you could apply the variant through the shipwright by purchasing it for 100,000 doubloons or with premium tokens from the premium merchant, which would also award you a full standalone Otter with the variant applied, as well as a full kit for the ship as well. Building the variant through the shipwright is straightforward. Once you go build your Otter, you go to the shipwright and pay 100,000 doubloons to purchase the variant. Then, if you want the full cosmetic replica of the Janus, you go to the Dockmaster and apply the correct wood types. Here is a screenshot of the selections you will need to make in order to fully replicate the pre-built Janus. If you purchased the variant while it was on sale, you can also apply all of these options later once you have the materials available. The only thing that you cannot replicate is the sails, which use a custom brass-like color. The closest available option to you will be one of the 2 yellow colors that are available using dull dye or normal dye. The second option was to buy it with premium tokens. Both variants cost 5,000 tokens, but also come with a fully kitted out ship. That means all the woods and dyes are included in making the exact one that was featured in the Discord picture. Moreover, they come with Terry cannons, which was one of the first cannon conversion kits that were available to players. And today they run a hefty price if you try to buy them off the market. The cannons themselves have 500 durability, meaning you can't build these exact copies of them, even though they are made of craftable materials. But the significant downside to these is that the cannons are not universal cannons. They come in whatever size fits the ship that you purchased, which means their resale value is extremely limited, especially once their durability falls below 400. Moreover, if you actually own a Terry cannon converter kit, you would want to apply that to a universal cannon. Their resale value and usability to other players is much higher. So don't buy this ship if you're doing it for the weapons that are included. And as a quick PSA, I was informed by a few members of various navies and Tradelands that these converted cannons do not always fire with the same level of accuracy as normal cannons. So make sure that you practice with them beforehand if you are planning to use them in combat. I haven't verified this personally, but I'm just passing this intel along in case you find out that it is accurate. And one final word of caution, if you are buying this ship for its cosmetic looks, the yellow color used on the sails causes a strange shadow, which can be a little distracting while you're sailing. It might have always been there, but it is definitely more noticeable with this modified rigging. However, when the ship is standing still, it looks gorgeous. And that's the nice thing about this variant, it looks sharp right out of the box, with no additional customizations necessary. Not all of us in this game have the same eye for creating those frankly stunning ships that some of the players in Tradelands have managed to create in this game. And if you are like me and you lack that level of creativity, the picturesque look and feel of the Janus will not disappoint you. And some final notes, this variant is usable by the Trade Guild, which is a huge positive in my opinion. The premium token version also comes with a unique weapon and a figurehead that you cannot attain in any other way. So there is some value in buying this just for those items, and there is surely going to be a couple of collectors who will want these items. The second variant is the Februa, and it was applied to the Brigand. There are two variants, the Hauler and the Raider, which transforms this from a combat ship to, frankly, the best trader and raider in the game right now. That's right, this variant is a must-have if you are a trader, as it outclasses the Albatross handedly in regular trade routes. The two ways to obtain this variant is to either buy it through the shipwright, which will cost you 100,000 doubloons to apply to an existing ship, or purchase it for 5,000 premium tokens. Like with the Janus, if you choose to purchase it through the shipwright, this screen shows the materials you will need to select at the Dockmaster in order to replicate the exact look and feel of the Februa. The screenshot is of the Hauler variant. Note that the Raider uses red oak instead of yew, and the sail colors will be different in accordance with the variant that you are trying to replicate, red or yellow respectively. The picture on Discord was of the Raider variant. If you purchase the premium token version, as with the Janus, it comes fully kitted out. It comes with ornate cannons, a type of conversion kit that was released last year. And also like the Janus, the cannons have 500 durability, but they are not universal cannons, limiting their resell value. And like we mentioned, if you aren't planning to re-kit the cannons anyway, make sure that you train with them a bit before you take them out to combat, as they might not fire exactly the same way as you're expecting with regular cannons. On the plus side though, there isn't much of a reason to replace these cannons since they're using the kit that most players use by default on a ship variant of this type. After all, this is not a combat ship. For that, use one of the regular Brigand variants. And that's where we recommend that anyone who likes to do trading should get this ship variant. Even if you don't buy the premium token version, the standalone variant is still an incredible upgrade. This is currently the best trade ship in the game, stat-wise at least, and I will admit that we are still in the middle of fully testing it, but our data at this time of recording the video definitely seems to be proving out that this is true. You are effectively getting a faster version of an Albatross, which is the top performing trade ship in the game today. It's likely that once this variant goes off sale, owning one as a trader may feel similar to what it's like to own a Demeter, which was another excellent trade ship that was available for a limited time frame as well. And the prestige that may come from owning one once it is off sale, assuming the developers don't nerf it of course, makes this a great purchase. The downside is you can't use this on the Trade Guild, which is disappointing, but the base ship, which was the Brigand, wasn't available on Trade Guild either, so this isn't a surprise. But to top it off, you get a custom Valentine's version of the original Blunder Blaster when you buy this ship. And there are definitely collectors wanting to purchase this item on the market, which in itself is an incredibly good reason to buy it for premium tokens. The main downside, however, with buying the premium token version is the choice in wood. But I'll be honest, this is just nitpicking because it's really more of the fault of the ship than it is of the variant. The Brigand doesn't have as many customization options, so it limits your creativity. Cedar isn't a very common wood choice for ship hulls, meaning it's pretty easy to tell who bought it versus who built the ship, meaning some players will likely want to modify the default color configuration after they purchased it as well. The sail configuration can look goofy at some angles, but nonetheless there aren't really a lot of ships that use this mixed style of rigging, so it's actually a unique sight in the game, if you can afford it of course. But even if not, I still recommend if you have the Brigand already, apply this as one of the variants now while you still have the chance. You can always build a second Brigand in the future to get the combat version back, but you also don't want to end up regretting not getting this variant while you had the chance. For what it's worth, it takes about 2 hours of trade running to pay off the Hauler variant, and it would be similar for the Raider as long as you enjoy doing that kind of thing, making this an incredibly good option to purchase, whichever way you decide to go. And with that, let's now look at the commonalities between these two variants and see what we can expect with the upcoming variants going forward. There are 3 ways that you can buy these. And the right option for you depends on your position within the game. I'm going to apply market rates as of the middle of February to this analysis, and they might change in the future, so be advised. The first option is that you can buy this variant from the shipwright. It costs 100,000 doubloons, and for that you will receive a change to your ship model, likely applied to the masts, as well as some changes to the stats. This is the cheapest option for you if you want the characteristics of the ships, but not necessarily the looks. And if you already have a fully decked out version of the ship that you like already, this is the right option for you, and you will appreciate your own creative genius over someone else's pre-baked version. Option 2 is to purchase the ship from the premium merchant for 5,000 premium tokens. If you take the market prices into account, meaning that you're going to buy these premium tokens from another player, this option will cost you likely around 1.2 to 1.3 million in doubloons, assuming you can find a seller who has that many tokens to sell. But this option comes with a fully kitted ship, with premium materials used in all the customization slots, a unique and unobtainable figurehead, custom sails, and a special wearable item. So far, they've all been weapons. So option 2 is the best value out of all of the options that you can select. The third option, mentioned here because the ships are all using materials available on the market, is to actually recreate the ship in almost exact detail using those materials from the market. However, this is the most expensive option. It's technically possible to do after the end of the month as long as you took option 1 when it was available and you don't care about the custom figureheads or the wearable items, but if you were to buy all of the necessary materials, the cost to build this variant to look exactly like their premium counterpart comes out to around 5.7 million doubloons of materials and miscellaneous items to recreate the Janus, and 6.9 million doubloons of materials and items for the Brigand variant, making this the least economical option of the three, but the only one that's available to you if you didn't have the time to collect it in advance, and likely to be the case of every variant that we see for the remainder of the year. So in summary, with option 1 and 2, yes, you will be getting your money's worth if you choose to purchase it with either premium tokens or just apply the variant to an existing ship. And if you have the economic means to buy either of these options for future ships, my recommendation is to look at the cosmetic visuals of the ship variants, and they are posted on Discord. And if you don't like the way they look, then get the upgrade through the shipwright for the doubloons. But if you do like it, then consider buying the premium token version instead. But try to avoid going down the route of option 3. And with that out of the way, it's time to mention the two events that are affecting the game, and the first is the return of the Freeport Games in February. This is one of the most exciting events in this game, where it's not about how many islands you control or how much wealth you control, it's about skill and teamwork that determines who gets to hold the title of the greatest champions in Tradelands until a new year and a new set of challengers come to claim that title from you. But because these games are still in progress as of recording this video, we're going to hold off on covering this event in detail and instead focus on the final conflict that rocked the game just before these Freeport Games actually started. At the end of last month, Nassau was reformed as an independent nation. When this happened, it is said that Nova Balreska, who saw themselves as the ones responsible for Nassau's freedom, told its nasty that if he tried to declare war on Nova Balreska, they would reveal some of the most compromising photos they had of him and Apple turnovers, and in response, Nassau immediately declared war, for they would not be blackmailed, and we here at the Tradelands Nation studio received a photo from an anonymous Novan source, and thus the conflict known as the bold and brass-shaped hot tub with former governess Apple Turnover's grandma's ashes floating on top war had begun. And in retaliation for tarnishing their honor, Nassau would go for Nova's most prized possession, the fortress of Clydesdale. Nova Balreska would hastily form up a fleet from its ships that were stationed at their capital in order to counter this incoming Nassau fleet. Both sides in this war, by the way, were comprised of veterans from the recent Prashovian Wars. Many of Nassau's soldiers were formerly part of the Prashovian Foreign Legion and used tactics that they had learned from their former navy. The strategy they would employ here is known as the Iron Wall, using ironclads as a protective barrier while their heavily armed ships fire broadsides at range, unleashing a steady and deadly barrage at their opponents. Nova, on the other hand, would operate the tried and true strategy that has worked for them over the past many years, a line of battle with smaller, more agile skirmishers operating independently. And as these two forces converged, it was clear that Nova Balreska could not concentrate their firepower on the heavy and vulnerable Nassau ships operating behind that wall of ironclads, and their skirmishers lacked the firepower in order to make a dent in the Nassau line. Nova's line crumbled, and the world must wonder now if perhaps this is a moment when the famous Novan line of battle may finally be obsolete, replaced with new tactics and perhaps a change in the future of naval warfare in Tradelands. But that is a question saved for a later video, because It's Nasty would leave them no time to regroup, and instead capitalized on his victory at sea and made his way to that fortress on Clydesdale. Here, expecting another easy victory from the demoralized Novan soldiers, he offered his commanders the opportunity to be the ones that take the glory and the spoils, while he would hold in reserve, waiting while they claimed the day. And with that, 2 waves of Nassau soldiers landed on the island. And what was a surprise to Nassau, but an obvious thing to the rest of us, the emboldened soldiers at Nova Balreska made a fierce resistance. And in the opening charge into the fortress, hundreds of Nassau soldiers died in seconds. After the clearing of the initial push, Nova counterattacked and pushed Nassau all the way back to their landing zones. But while this happened, they were being flanked. It was their second wave that saw the mistakes that were made by the uncoordinated Nassau attacks. Sir Tenebris raised his sword at the flag flying above the fort and told his men, "Be the ones to raise the flag of Nassau atop that citadel, and then you will be the hero of a nation." And those Nassau soldiers charged into the fortress and were once again cut down. But this time, the Novan defenders had to give way. They fought hard, but Nassau fought harder. Order and cohesion began to break down on both sides. The Novans became trapped in pockets all around their fortress. Sir Tenebris and his men ran across those walls and up to the top of the citadel, and they raised that flag of Nassau. And from a distance, It's Nasty, looking through his spyglass, proclaimed to his troops that it looked like victory was in hand. But in their rush to capture the citadel, they had left one pocket of Novan soldiers in the courtyard, which still held their ground. Their leader had been killed, and they were running low on ammunition, and as any Tradelands player will tell you, this was likely to be the end for them, and it was just a matter of time before they were picked off from the soldiers shooting down at them from above. And if they had been with any other faction, this would likely be true, but these were soldiers of Nova Balreska, and they were trained personally by Tatsu. The exchange these Novans had sums up their resolve best. When one of them asked, "What do we do now?" another answered, "We do what Tatsu taught us for Nova Balreska." And even another said, "We will teach these sun people what a red dawn looks like." And with a type of courage that is often seen only in storybooks, they charged out of their positions while under constant gunfire. They raced across the courtyard, up the stairs, over the ramparts, and across the bridge and into the citadel. And as they went, other Novan soldiers who were pinned down by Nassau would rise out of their hiding spots and join them. It was like watching a red tide. And here, in their final moment, they pushed Sir Tenebris and his band of heroes and tore down that flag of Nassau and pushed Sir Tenebris himself off the walls and into the courtyard, where he was swarmed by Nova Balreska and defeated. It's Nasty, aboard his flagship, saw the Novan flag put back atop the fort on Clydesdale and realized his commanders had failed him. He decided it was time to end this charade once and for all, and he landed a small spotter force uncontested, which made their way up into viewing distance with the fort, and behind him a single mortar ship moved into range, and here they demonstrated the calculative tactical brilliance of veterans of many wars. Instead of charging in, It's Nasty had his mortar ship, with the help of his spotters, meticulously find the range of every gun on the fort at Clydesdale. Nova Balreska's response was muted. They believed that Nassau had spent all of their ground forces, and if they were able to survive this retaliatory mortar strike, Nassau would eventually have to retreat. But it is what lurked in the shadows of this island that mattered most. And finally, after all of his preparations were complete, Nasty said a single word: execute. And like clockwork, his strategy unraveled. The mortar ship destroyed the swivels at the exact moment the Nassau column passed through the gates. They took no losses. And in the courtyard, they maintained their cohesion as they systematically eliminated every Novan soldier that stood in their way. First, they would remove every Novan soldier from the courtyard, moved up the stairs, and took the back of the fort. They moved over the ramparts in both directions. Anywhere they went, Nova Balreska's defenders fell before them. With a pocket on the outer wall nearing surrender, Nassau would move into the citadel, and for the first time, we realized Nasty's vision for the nation of Nassau. It was a vision of complete and total victory. And in their final triumph, a group of Nassau soldiers immediately headed out of the island of Clydesdale, making a direct line towards the island of Nova Balreska, the capital of this country. And this move inspired a panic. Nova Balreska, who had not anticipated such a direct assault at their largest fortress, was now caught off guard, unsure of the size of the Nassau forces that were intending to invade. And Tatsu had ordered all non-essential military personnel off their capital island to make their way to Salem and Perth in case a government in exile was required. The remaining defenses were therefore undermanned, but Nova would put up a stiff resistance. They contested those landings, and thankfully the invasion force was not the full army that had originally invaded Clydesdale, as most of those Nassau soldiers were now casualties. But this was not known to Tatsu at the time, and still they made Nassau fight for every inch. Small victories on the left and right flanks meant that Nassau had to push through two narrow corridors of safety, one that was at the heights in the middle of the island, and the other that was through the southeast shoreline that went underneath the fortress's cannons. And through it all, Tatsu stayed with his troops on the front line, guiding them at every choke point. And for every Novan soldier that fell, it is said that 5 fell for Nassau, but Nassau was grinding down the defenders, ever so slowly pushing their way up the island, closer and closer to the fortress, where Nova would have to make its last stand. And as the first Nassau musket shots flew over the fortress, it was said that this was the exact moment when Tatsu realized he might actually lose this battle. And if so, it would mean in all of his attempts to make Nova a great nation again after its floundering against Pershovia last year, he instead might be responsible for the second time in a year that Nova Balreska ceased to be a nation on the map. And as the soldiers approached the fortress, the final climactic battle that would determine the fate of the Grand Isles was about to conclude. And this battle, now known as the Stand of the Nassau Six, would show the world that if any nation could unite the Grand Isles, it would be them. And with their victory, we now take a pause in their future endeavors for the Freeport Games. But once those games have ended, we might very well have to start asking the question of what Nassau stands for, and if there will be any challenger able to stop them from conquering the world. And we look forward to hearing your thoughts on that question. But for now, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in game.